And we're live. Hello everyone, my name is Sondra Sneed. I am a Godscribe, a source communicator, and a soul reader. And tonight I am compelled to bring very important information from source. And this information is in reaction to very profound information that came through someone else. And to help me with this, I have two very special guests who we are not going to name their names because it would put them in a very vulnerable position in the wave of the unseen. So we have their avatars here, Archangel Gabriel, as well as Obi-Wan Kenobi, two very close friends of mine, but truly on the high level when it comes to the nature of spirit on Earth. So to help me kind of put this whole thing in context, this source talk that's really a Q&A in context, I wonder if, Obi-Wan, if you would let our watchers know what this information is and where it's coming from.
I originally found this information in approximately 1998, a new website called wingmakers.com. It was music, it was information, and it talked about that there is a group of beings called the Wingmakers who live in the future, and they are future humanity, they are us in the future, and they have returned to help us awaken out of a manipulation and control program that was put upon virtually all of humanity by the Anunnaki, who genetically engineered humanity to basically be their slaves. The information was given by a gentleman named James, who brought forth through the Wingmakers, and he then had 5 interviews with a gentleman called Dr. Neruda, and the information we will be looking at tonight is the 5th interview of Dr. Neruda, where he in detail talks about how the Anunnaki came, manipulated humanity, and still has a holographic control mechanism moving through virtually all of our financial, political, and social structure as they continue to basically keep us under their thumb, and how we can hopefully awaken now out of that program.
It's mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing. I wonder now if Archangel Gabriel, I know you also have some experience with this content, as well as a great deal of experience with other gurus and spiritual teachers and so forth. What did this information do to you when you read it?
Well, I've been exposed to this many years ago, but each time I tried to read through it, I just couldn't get through it until just a couple weeks ago when I went into this 5th interview, and something changed for me. What really got my attention is that if this information is true, then it means the overall level of control is so vast, and to my shock, they say it includes basically many and most of the spiritual teachers that I looked up to and their methods of being disentangled, being able to be here in a body but enjoy it but not get caught up. And so this put all of that, basically everything I believed in, it really put a big question mark behind it to go, if this is true, then I may not be heading for disentanglement. It's noble what I've been doing, but it's not really the goal. It won't get me there. So I'm most excited to be part of this and to have this information come from source so I can get a new stability on what I really need to be doing.
Yeah, and that's what's really great about being able to have that direct information from source. It just happens to be through me, but I know there are other people. In fact, I was just listening to Michael Beckwith today, and I have never heard him before, but he is definitely a source communicator. Source is speaking right through him up there on the stage, and I, as I was watching him, I just was practically on my feet cheering to really hear someone else pulling that great, deep intelligence forth. So even though I personally understand your fear and know a bit of your biography and how much study you've done, I can reassure you that you can be free when you achieve that level of spiritual connection, that your authority is only Source. Source is the only authority in your life, that there can be no other to overtake you. You cannot be a slave when God is the one that you follow, because God will guide you right out of that slavery. Guided the Israelites and have guided many others all throughout history, whether I personally know of them and can give God the words or not. So let's get started with this source talk, unless there's any last word that either of you feel like you need to add before we begin.
Well, I could add just one more, and you elucidated so nicely. The shift for me has been from looking for external guidance. It really got me to do what most of the externals have always said: the final answer, the truth, is within.
Right.
And so this has motivated me in what I consider a beneficial way to really say, I'm really going to put more more credence in what's coming from within. That said, I'm excited to go forward with this information.
Sure. Yeah, brilliant. Brilliantly said. All right, so with that, let's just raise the vibration a bit. I just want people to know that when I enter my God self, when I say God says, then that puts my mind immediately into the God mind. And for those of you who may be listening to this and you don't believe in God or don't have a relationship with God, that's okay. You know, I'd rather work with an atheist than someone who has such strict, encumbered beliefs about what God could be. Because you need a big mind, you need a big imagination to work with this kind of information. So I'm raising the vibration now. All right, so let's begin.
In the Neruda interviews, it talked about how the Anunnaki, probably some 450,000 years ago or even more, came to this planet in order to mine gold, which could help save their civilization from destruction. And they were a very advanced civilization, more fifth dimensional, that worked from advanced mind systems. They came to the planet and took humanity that was basically coming out of an animal instinctual place, and through genetic manipulation and control, they created basically a slave population in order to mine gold, and they put into place systems that would then be the programs that humanity would work within, that were manipulated by the Anunnaki.
So God says, this is a way of saying it. This is a way of describing it. But the truth is, the Anunnaki were not responsible for the creation of humankind. They were responsible for creating a human capable of being manipulated. But they were not responsible for humankind. Humankind was created by Source in order that three-dimensionality have consciousness. That consciousness can be obtained within 3 dimensions, because the three-dimensional world was incarnating in a way that it was impossible for Source to keep track of all of the great species that were coming out of the great environments as the world was in its next stage of evolution. From its earliest stages, it would go for a long period of time before any new complex change occurred. But suddenly there was an explosion on the planet when that complexity began to triple, quadruple, and from the manipulation of pi, create great explosions in an exponential way for the species coming through all kinds of environments. So what we needed, what Source needed, was a calculator. And that calculator needed to be able to identify nuances of difference. And those nuances of difference needed to be able to identify a cat, a wolf, a snake, an eagle, a fish, a mountain, a cave. There had to be so many distinct changes in observation by this calculator that we created a highly complex being that could obtain consciousness. Now, they were not born with consciousness. They were made like you would make a robot. They were made with transitions. Transitioning self, meaning that's not me, this is me. That not me could eat me. That not me could be something I eat. That not me could be something I befriend. There had to be a self-acknowledgement based on survival, companionship, joy, delight, fear, a healthy fear. This robot had to make distinctions about the self that were identifiable for survival. When it came to true survival, though, meaning surviving beyond the three-dimensional form, so that this three-dimensional form was a mere vessel for consciousness, there had to be a mechanism in the nature of it, a mechanism in the nature of it that would turn on when they could sense consciousness being raised to a level of interaction. So just as you can interact with this voice that Sondra allows, that's how we made humanity in the image of God. God can interact with God's self. God can communicate with God's self. God does so through the beings that God makes. God communicates through and to and with the nature of God, with every species of animal that can interact with every species of animal. This is God communicating with God. Now, the God that I'm talking about here is a spirit. This God is spirit. Spirit cannot be observed with the eyes. It is observed with the mind, the great imagination, the great mind. When a being finds the great mind through their own mind, they find God, and God finds them. And in this case, what that creates is a free being. So the story of Genesis in the Bible originally came from a Godscribe like Sondra. But what we told that scribe was Adam and Eve were made by God to perfect the nature of God on the planet. But they had to do so by thinking for themselves. So the story of Adam and Eve is a story about humans becoming free to think for themselves. The Anunnaki influenced those who were writing this down and interpreting the story, because it came through generation after generation after generation through verbal storytelling. When it was written down, 2/3 of the population were already slaves. So they told the story, this is what happens when you disobey the master. You are cast out. You are cast out of anything that would let you survive, that would allow you to survive. You are cast out if you disobey the master. This was a master plan to change the story of the beginning of time so that humans become subject to their own creator. They wiped out the God of Israel, the Israelites. They told a different story altogether. The ancient Israelites held the story of God pure. There are still remnants of that pure story of God, but it is hidden in a language nearly forgotten. Now, where were we? We mostly want you to know from what you described is that this is not a fully correct interpretation of the information the wing makers brought to Dr. Neruda as his self-scribe. He, as a man, cannot reinterpret that information accurately any more than Sondra can interpret accurately the information we give her until she has studied it. And once she's studied it and communicated with us in an interaction about it, then we can confirm or deny that her train of thought is correct. But human trains of thought are very fallible, which is another reason why they are so vulnerable to the Anunnaki. Now, we'd like to take a moment to describe what the Anunnaki are. These are remnants of a past. The remnants of the past that they are associated with is the remnant of the Persian. Yes, Sondra, that's the word. These are remnants of the Persian Is this a spirit word you want me to say? Yes. Persian peripheral heresy? Yes, heresy. So there was a god of Persia, and that god of Persia was solid, a good god, a god that was associated with a spiritual alignment. But then it veered off, and it called forth a purging of the ghosts of beings associated with delivering information about God. You mean they were once associated with information about God. No, I thought you said the Anunnaki separated from God a long time ago. True, true. So they delivered information. Oh, you mean it was telepathically delivered to someone in Persia? Right, right. And then mixed up with their spirit God or the true God? Right. When that information became mixed, it created a culture that mixed prayer with counsel of extraterrestrial, interdimensional, and interterrestrial people. So when this became the context of mindfulness, the people who followed into the mindfulness training got split. Some of them went toward mindfulness in the occult, and some of them went toward mindfulness in the nature of spiritual hierarchies. Hierarchies then became something of a blend for humans to be groomed for enslavement. When you say Persia, are you talking about the biblical Persia, or are you talking older? Older. It's an older civilization. It was bigger? No. Now this is the area of what was Iran and Egypt, and that area? Yes. I feel like this is Sondra saying, I feel like I need to see an atlas with actual, I got an atlas on the wall, but it doesn't have names of things.
It's the area of Iran, Iraq, Mesopotamia, where civilization was totally spoken of as the cradle of civilization.
Yes, yes. God, that's God saying yes. Yes, that is what it is. So Gary, this is a good segue for you to describe another potentially egregious participation the Anunnaki played in human past.
Supposedly, as they then interbred with humanity, and through their superior mind control systems, they were able to program the subconscious and the genetic parts of the human mind to follow programs that basically we gave our power over to the political, the monetary, the financial, that were part of the more intelligent and superior Anunnaki. And many of those individuals are still under control of the Anunnaki, and our financial and political systems are not free, and even our spiritual pathways are often controlled unconsciously through this genetic programming.
Indeed. So the way that spiritual control can happen to people who are seeking higher ascended energies and higher enlightenment, what can cause them to be interrupted from that ascension is the perspective of where they are on a three-dimensional plane. If they experience lack of love, lack of money, lack of equipment to pursue the world as it is, a lack of faculty, the abilities, they think they lack intelligence, they think they lack promise, these lacks build up in the thoughts, and when you're in a state of mindfulness, those thoughts become attractive to the Anunnaki. Now, individuals are not necessarily targets, but in mass, humans become targets the greater this field of fear becomes in mass. So whenever you have an economic downturn and the world gets all up in arms, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen? And people are feeding on the fear that of what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen. What will happen to me? What will happen to me? What will happen to me? In this fear of me and what happens to me, this becomes a call. And it calls to the Anunnaki to come back to the planet and find their purpose. This is Sondra saying, when I'm talking, you guys may want to mute Gabrielle's mic because I can hear myself on the other side. Good, thank you. I can't seem to do it from here. I'm also having a hard time making presentation, who's presenting and who's not. So if you want to try to take over that, Gabrielle, please feel free to. All right. So God says, we've explained how the spiritually ascending can get derailed through fear and open-mindedness, but those who have no spirituality or even the yearning for an inner peace are even more manipulated through fear because they don't have a home base and they have no skills to create that home base. And these are the ones that create in mass the humanity that then becomes the oppressed. So the manner of it now, the way that it is occurring now, is that there are pockets of the world that are in states of lack and fear, at the same time as there are those seeking power, political and military power. Now, those who are seeking power, who fear the way of the planet, the way the planet is headed, they fear it. Those who are seeking power and fear the way of the planet and the way that they are in fear, they are making themselves a power structure in order to change it. And when they do, they achieve their power. Instead of making the changes that they believe will be positive, they find that this power that they now have has power beyond belief. Power beyond belief. And that's when they are subject to being targeted. Feeling a lot of pain going on here. It's like Darth Vader is going. Just kidding. It's not funny. God says, this is just your tension. You are feeling tension from the information. So you need to relieve that tension there. Okay. Try. Now, this information is not going to do any damage. We're reassuring you, to those who are listening, to those who are participating. The damage will not be done to you personally. The damage can be done all around you. So being aware of it, being focused on how you can help and serve the world, will change and adjust everything going on around you so that you are protected and those you love are protected, because you are adjusting to the positive mind, the mind that can do, the mind that goes. Now we want to read from something that we gave to Sondra a few years ago called True Love, a Guidance System. We felt that this was very appropriate in order for people to understand the true context of how this power is acquired by the ghosts of the past of an alien race. What you think, you create. What you create, you live. What you live, you do. And what you do, you recreate in others. Unless they know the truth. The true is a whole nother story, and we are giving that information through Sondra as well. But understand that what you do recreates what you think, what you create, and what you do in others. So when you are being free in the mind, unencumbered by fear, you can create and recreate that in others. Now, we would like Obi-Wan to ask the next question, even though it's probably not a question.
Well, one of the things the Neruda interview talks about so graphically is that the phenomenal intelligence of the Anunnaki and the manipulation of the mind systems has created a holographic illusion that is basically overshadowing all of humanity, and it is controlled by them. They know how to holographically manipulate this hologram around us, and we basically live in a bubble of energy that is not even real.
There's some truth to that, although there is a slight misinterpretation of the information that this is about. A holographic coding over the illusions of humanity is just the creation of humanity. Humanity has created its own illusion. The Anunnaki manipulate that illusion for their own needs. So humans create this system of financial exchange that they become dependent upon. So they construct companies. These companies have employees. These employees feel like their only way to make a living is through a job in this company. So they need a job. By thinking that they need a job, or there's no other way to live without a job, then they aren't free to think in a way that contributes in some way to the world outside of a job. Because the job serves their need for money, they have nothing left to serve the world. So the Anunnaki know that this is a psyche. This is not a truth. It's not true that you need a job. It's not true that this is the only way to make a living by having a job. It's not true that you are in need of money all the time. That is a human illusion. That hologram that is created from the mind of human invention. It's created from the mind of human invention. Human invention comes from imagination. The imagination can be manipulated when an individual does not give credence to the imagination. Oh, that's just my imagination. just my imagination. By not giving the power of knowing that imagination is everything, the hologram becomes realized. It's not just a holographic, tenacious picture hovering around humanity. It's actually brought into the realization, into the real, so that systems and mechanisms feed it. It has its own feeding system. So when you add to that military might that says, give us what we want or else. And what we want is to put you in alignment with what we want the world to be. Therein is the Anunnaki, who has the power to enforce this by stirring up the psyche of humans who are not clear that they are here for a reason, and they are here to live purpose, live on purpose, to find purpose in everything they do. The purpose of having a job is not to make you happy. It's not to build your life. It's simply to make your living. Your life must be built in ways that give you joy and happiness. This is how you destroy an Anunnaki, because they do not feed on humans in joy. They feed on human greed and fear. Fear of loss, fear of lack. So does that clarify it a little bit more for you, Obi-Wan?
It does, thank you.
You're welcome.
It also said in their interview that the Anunnaki came from a planet called Nibiru, Nibiru.
Yes, that is true.
And where is that planet?
That planet is within a star system that's within this galaxy. It is further than sunlight. It's further than sunlight is warm. But they are in another dimension, so they don't require the temperatures to be so perfect the way that protein-based beings do. Now, one thing we want you to know is that there's really nothing left of their former world. The only thing that's left are the ghosts of that past. It is a world that went extinct. But these are the beings that did not follow their spirit into source condition. So they're similar to like our ghosts, like human ghosts. They are, yes, very similar.
This gentleman, James, from the Wingmakers, does Source have any information about the Wingmakers or James and the information that he's bringing through supposedly from this future? And we know that time is really only in the now, but this future humanity that is here to reawaken us?
Yes, we can indeed give you that information. So these are future humans, but these humans are not time bound, which means then they have occurred after wiping out the old human race. Not wiping out completely, but enough of them so that the next phase of evolution could occur where time held no boundaries. And in addition to that, they have technologies that resemble radio wave reality? Yes, radio wave reality. What does that mean, a radio wave reality? Well, imagine you could take sound off of a radio's speaker, the sound that's coming off of it, and then turn it into something, anything. That's where they are in technology. They understand the radio wave so well, they can recreate something just by projecting that wave of sound. It becomes the drawer or the inkjet printer. Sound is highly manipulated by the wing makers as a future human race. Now, we won't tell you how far into the future they are because we don't want to alarm people about when humanity wipes itself out, because you can't really compare in the time realms. If we said this is 5,000 years from now, it wouldn't actually be 5,000 years from now. It would be 5,000 years after this evolved condition, the split. 5,000 years after the split, from this version to that version of human, right? So there's no telling when that split happens. There's no telling if this human race has 3 generations or 15 generations or 500 generations. There's no way to know for sure yet. So these future humans have found ways to communicate with past humans, but not just past humans, other humans that are beyond this stage of humans. Wow, that just blows my mind. How does that change the course of humanity now? Well, it can have a great deal of impact on humanity now. If humanity in mass gets this information, and starts to change and adjust accordingly, then the Anunnaki cannot take power to cause a process of enslavement and dampen human progress spiritually, psychologically, technologically, in imagination. These are things that are necessary for the next wave of humanity. Also, humanity needs to create a balance with nature's systems, because man needs nature's systems to survive as a species. So finding a balance within it is essential. Learning to break free of time, of the 24-hour clock, learning to break free of time is man's most significant change that needs to occur in the next 24 hours. What do you mean in the next 24 hours? Not the next 24 hours from now, but in the next concept of what 24 hours is. Man needs to rediscover a new system of the 24 hours. It's too rigidly categorized right now. And that will not allow man to technologically change in mass. That needs to adjust. Time needs to recirculate with circadian rhythms. So individuals need to be free of the clock, free of the 9 to 5, free of time constraints, because that's another tool that the Anunnaki use to keep man in states of fear. Obi-Wan?
Are there other terrestrial, or I would say fifth dimensional beings that are working through our government, like the Siriums, like the Cordium, that are here to manipulate humanity?
Yes. Yes. There's only so much information we can give about that, because there's nothing you can do, and there's nothing most others can do about these political puppets for the Anunnaki. The only way to eliminate their potential is to, through human innovation, human desire to know itself over the laws that restrict. Not saying they should be lawless. There's an ethical association with anarchy if it's done correctly. But that man needs to see, wait, just because this is the way it is doesn't mean this is the way it has to be for me. I can make something else entirely different. I do not need to follow the steps that everyone else has taken in order to see my own worth. My worth is in what I create that creates for me. And as it creates for me, I share in what I serve in that creation. So when people get that and create that and build from that, then man can just go off on his own merry way and love the joy of what he is and what he can create. And when we say he, we mean she, he. All life is she, he. Because all that is giving is woman. All that is making is man. All that makes that is woman is creating, and all that makes that is man is building. The male-female is one unit. It's one. No individual is defined by their gender, nor should you define the gender of God, because God is both and all in one. We just wanted to clear that up. Gabrielle, we would like you to ask the question that is most commonly on your mind about this.
Some information came through that said, gave me a core of optimism with regard to the Anunnaki. And after understanding they can outthink us, they're very smart and all, and since they're essentially invisible to most people, it's hard to know how to defend against them. But the information came that although they can do many things, the one thing they can't do is ascend into the frequencies, the dimensions that the human soul can.
Right.
And that where they feed from, since if the information was correct, is they're no longer here to mine gold, they're way beyond that, but they need our energy. Right. And the best way to make the human body a battery of energy for their needs was the deep fear.
Yes.
Causes, as it does an adrenaline rush in the physical, it causes an outpouring of, I suppose, vital energy that they can feed from.
Right.
So what gave me promise is that to that extent that I can go within and understand what's going on, and when I feel fear, recognize the basis of it and just say, okay, let me just get quiet here, let me take myself up as high as I can. And it's like going to the second floor of a two-story house, and they're the boogeyman on the first floor, but they can't get me when I'm on the second.
Right.
Any comments about that?
Right. Very well said. We really like that. What we would say instead of the second floor, though, is that they're down in your basement. And the basement is an essential part of the floor. The reason this is an important metaphor is that when people descend below their ground, where ground is, when they descend below ground, they are hiding from who they are in states of fear, huddling in fear. And the boogeyman in the basement is the one that knows those fears and feeds from those fears. So enables them and keeps them fresh, those fears. Coming up to who you truly are is ground. You ground yourself in the ways of the earth to be the highest of yourself, because it's only there that the self can be held, is through the earth in groundedness. And then the rest of you can ascend as far as you desire, and for some, as far as you are in reality. The saving, meaning it saves you from them, is although it's a correct way of seeing yourself, it's not necessarily a correct way of seeing the Anunnaki, because the Anunnaki just can't see you when you are at your highest, or even just at your grounded most. They don't see it. It's not where they put their attention. So what advantage that gives to humans is that humans who then are placing themselves in a higher dimension, or one might say just the higher energy in light. It's higher energy in light. When you place yourself in that way and they cannot see that, what that means is that the sophistication of your ability to morph into more can be the way of you. It can be the way of you, the way you are, the way you work through your day, the way you become toward others. It's the state of kindness, because in that state of kindness, you align others to that same light. And that kindness first is shown to yourself. And when that kindness is shown to yourself, it gives you much more patience with those who need your kindness too. So in kindness, in this way, you are protecting you, and you are protecting others around you. Never has it been so important that people understand God is within. God is the source of that within. And it is deep within. So when they are in a layer of despair, they have to plunge deeper below the layer of despair into the clear waters and learn how to breathe underwater, because they are breathing spirit there. That is spirit they are breathing. That is a letting loose into the vulnerability. Letting go of the vulnerability means letting go of the body's sensations, what the body senses around it, what the body thinks it is. It lets go and it submerges deep, 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 deep down. This then goes, it's a letter J. It's a deep, deep, deep down And in that depths, that is the higher way. It is the way to source, source energy, source being. The letter J is an extremely important letter in the spiritual alphabet. What else did you want to say about that? We're finished with that explanation. Did you have any more questions about that, or would you like to go to the next question?
I have a related, I'm not sure it's so much of a question, but it was a feeling as this information settled within. And I think there was another piece of information that was given that said, or at least my interpretation at this time, the ability to be flexible. So in other words, in my own case, I had, to use the analogy of a stone tower that I had created with the various studies that I had done. And it wasn't a stone tower I necessarily believe was proper for anyone else, but for me, there was comfort. And from the top of the tower, there were views where I thought I could see the diversity of the different methods of people living their lives as they could. And then the information came that that tower can still be knocked down if it's too rigid. And so what I've been dancing with now is, instead of a tower, look at it, say, more like a Hawaiian palm tree that has height. You can climb up it. The views are equally incredible. There's shade at the top. But in stormy times, that it has great sway, and it can move, but its roots are still firmly in the ground, and it's not uprooted. And what I'm feeling, as there is more in the news about this process that the planet is seeming to head for, and humanity is heading for, there's some rather large, significant lessons on the horizon, or already the water is starting to break on our shores, so to speak, that I'm finding comfort in spending more time recognizing when I feel some fear that maybe that's representing rigidity in me, and I need to look at that and say, maybe if I loosen up and let God and creation work through this shift that's happening, I can come through with some joy and be of service, not be so wrapped up in fear, that my energy instead can help others, a way share, a lighthouse, something of that nature.
We love this. We love this. And what we really find interesting about it is that the training you had to do in your mind, in order for that to be the image that you start to align to, the sway of a powerful tree. That, by the way, the palm tree is the first tree on a planet. It is a star tree. It comes from stars. And it is planted there in order to bring root, and then trees evolve from that, because it goes in and it holds on to the planet. It's holding on. You mean to sustain organic material? Yes. Yes. It is the instance of sustaining organic material. So, if you imagine yourself then as the lighthouse with the construction of the palm tree, then you are literally imagining the starlight. This is Sondra saying, this information came one time in a reading for someone, and I was standing next to a palm tree, and God said, pointed to the roots, and then pointed straight up, and there was a star right there above the palm tree, And I saw in that image how this palm tree was made by stars. It just blew me away. And so to hear then God say to you in this image you've done that the light from the lighthouse is starlight, it's just like, that's cool. Sorry, I'm interrupting here, but that's just brilliant, beautiful, stunning. God says there's one more thing we want to say about that, and we are happy to change the subject as one would imagine, is that you have a very important role to play in your knowing and understanding of starlight. And there are many others like you. We don't mean exactly like you, but we mean many others who need to understand the nature of starlight. They are star systems in and of themselves. They come from star systems. They experience stars in a completely different way than human minds do. The starlight system produces souls. It's a soul production manifest. If spirit is God, and you are an individuated spirit from God, then that spirit created a soul using starlight. We don't know how to describe this for humans to understand, but please know that stars play a very important role in the making of you as an individual, individuated in a journey, an evolving journey to become.
It's said sometimes that the stars are born in star nurseries, so it's not a far leap to see that they then could become nurseries for other expressions of their light and energy and beingness.
Yes. Well said. Well said. So back to the Anunnaki. What other condition of the interview with Dr. Neruda do we need to clarify and make sure the information is more exact?
How is the Galactic Federation working to assist in this awakening from out of the control systems of the Anunnaki?
Well, the Galactic Federation is very much in communion with individuals whose job it is to directly impact power structures, directly impacts power structures. So there are members of the Galactic Federation who are in government or in politics all over the world, all over the world. Some of them have made it to the higher levels, but some of them are designed to work in smaller facility. Some are designed, their lives are designed specifically to influence a specific group of people. And then that group of people makes a big impact. So yes, they're here. The souls that have incarnated from the Galactic Federation onto this planet are here. They are working toward their purpose. If they're not, they're being beat up by life and they'll eventually get there. But yes, they're here.
I'm sure there's people listening to this, and it was a personal concern also that once there was an understanding of an overview of what they're doing, what their purpose, how it affects us, and that at the end of all of that, it really comes down to if they can put us in fear, it suits their purpose to generate. And we hear it in the news that there's news that they focus mainly on what's not working. And it's really, there's so many more people attempting to do right. But if you listen to the news, if you were from another planet and you listen to our news, you would think all of us are just failing miserably. So the question that I think would be a wonderful takeaway for many listeners is, when you feel yourself in fear and you're getting just caught up, you can't lift out, is there a simple technique? Is there something, can they call on help from someone somewhere just to help them bring their energy up if they can't quite do that all by themselves yet, and they may not have friends that they can get help with? How can we do that?
I think what you're really asking is, what is the practice that we can use to meditate in a state of stasis? So stasis is that level of calm that is neither up nor down. It's neither up nor down. It is at a calm. It is the middle way. The middle way is a master's goal, to achieve the middle way. So that means you don't get too excited and you don't get too depressed. You don't allow it. You feel yourself in the lull, in the doldrums, and you don't look for reasons why you're depressed. Instead, you look for reasons to allow yourself to be depressed for a little while. You give it a time limit, and you say, hey, today I'm taking a day to just let me be and let me be. And you allow yourself to be. Then you'll come up out of that quicker. If you allow yourself to go too deep and then you go into a panic about that you're too deep, and you're questioning all the reasons that you're depressed, and you're looking for reasons to be depressed because you got to find a reason for why you are depressed, then you stay in that depression and you try to fight your way out of it by saying, it's not good that I'm depressed. This is bad. I got to get out of it. I got to snap out of it. You just hold yourself in it longer by doing that. Instead, if you just give yourself room to know that sometimes I just feel depressed. There's nothing causing it. There's nothing in my way. It's just a way I feel right now. And tomorrow might feel better. Or not. But let go of any attachment you have to that moment of being depressed. The same is true for excitement. If something good happens, do not dance around the house and go giddy. What you're doing is you're ungrounding your energy, and it's going into high vibrations of loud noise and distortion, instead of staying in the gratitude of it. Thank you, God, for what has happened. Oh, this is good. God, thank you. And when you stay in that gratitude about it rather than giddy excitement, then your body isn't going to look for the equal and opposite direction to balance that out. So highs cause deep lows. So always look for the middle way. That is the quickest way out of fear, is knowing that whatever it is that's scaring me right now is not me. I am this middle way. Manipulate your mind before someone else does. Mr. Obi-Wan Kenobi, we hear a question in your mind we'd like you to ask.
In the Neruda interviews, it talked about how there is a new human 3.0 developing, if we are what you might call 2.0 human. Mm-hmm. And 3.0 human is systematized by the Christ energy, and we then, through that higher purpose, are able to live Source, God, in and through us. There's also a desire for the Anunnaki through technology to create a 3.0 more cyberborg being to continue their puppeting of humanity.
Yes. So this is the part that's a bit scary for people. And it's not something that we even like to talk about, but people do need to be aware of it. Not because they'll be overtaken by them, just the mere fact that it's possible to create essentially clones. These are lifeless humans. They don't have the soul necessary for the human spirit to come alive. They breed. The future humans that have achieved source connection, technology, mindfulness, a higher consciousness that they create from, are ones who slayed the dragon. That's all we're going to say about it, because we don't really want people to get caught up in that. It's not something that their generation is going to have anything to deal with. It is a shift in generational mindset that's going to determine when it erupts. And when that time comes, we will be working through our resources. People like Sondra and many others will be working through our resources to give the next level of information that's required to slay that dragon. Are there any more questions that you guys want to bring up?
We had so many, but somehow this information kind of seems to have covered the big picture, which kind of took care of a lot of the details, which is, I guess, when the incoming information is of high quality, it becomes self-evident, a lot of the lesser questions.
Right, right. But there are conditions of the information that we haven't covered. It's only because we don't feel that the timing is right that we haven't covered it. However, if there's any curiosity you have for one last question, we're willing to answer it.
There's a term that they use, the grand portal,
Yes.
in these interviews. And it's basically heaven on earth, the first time first source may inhabit the dimensional worlds. And what it felt like to me is that's what we're really all here striving for, is to be able to create ourselves into such an energetic condition that source can be even more present within us to co-create and directly experience this wonderful and sometimes painful three-dimensional, very dense reality.
The portal is a dimension shift. It's not a gateway, it's a shift. So you can't walk through it. You have to simply deny 3 dimensions and there you are. We have discussed this before in Source Talks about the nature of appearance and disappearance. You can appear in one dimension, which would cause you to disappear in another. This is how aliens are able to abduct people. They use this kind of portal. And that portal is a shift, and yes, it can open to the nature of the heavens, where there seems to be this simultaneous existence. Simultaneously in existence, you're on the human three-dimensional plane, and then you are also in a state of higher consciousness where you could literally travel the universe. They call this out-of-body experience. But you're not leaving your body at all. You're just disappearing from one dimension and reappearing in another. And you are contained within yourself, within this vessel while it's happening. It's a difficult thing to describe, but this portal that allows you to shift is achievable through deep meditation, hyper focus, and intense awareness of the being you are that is not physical. Some people achieve that through lack of sleep or lack of food. The ancient Israelites would wander in the desert until they were shell of physicality, and they would attain that higher dimensional awareness without food, without water. And just like the ancient Tibetan monks, they could achieve a sense of needing nothing from the environment to survive, and only surviving on spirit.
One last, to dovetail off that, one of the key precepts of that fifth interview is that the Anunnaki not only are able to influence the realm that we're in, but also some of the other realms that are spiritual preceptors and role models would, when they would disappear from the human body and they'd go to other realms and then report back they had a unitive experience, all was good. Some of the wing makers are saying that's really are still realms that the wing makers influence, and they allow us that Anunnaki, that the Anunnaki still control that, and they allow us that so that we think we're escaping, but we're not. And yet earlier in this information exchange, it was more that when we're free of fear that we are going more towards source and we're not being limited in the astral or other intermediate realms.
Well, one thing we want to correct is the Anunnaki cannot influence your physical being unless they are influencing your psyche. And they influence your psyche through mindfulness, through the mind. The mind is this vast, amazing kaleidoscope of potential. Then the psyche is the programmed condition of humanness that allows you to survive in a human world. So in mindfulness, the mind that is the creative one, the one that is the identity greater than the human self, the mind becomes elusive when you re-up into source. It's an elusive nature, and the Anunnaki cannot perceive this elusive nature. They can't capture it in their peripheral attention when you stay in light as often as possible. Now, since it moves like this, however, there are periods where they can perceive you. And these do happen to be in states when you're in states of fear or worry or doubt. But there isn't enough of you for them to grab a hold of. So they can't really control unless you are controllable. And the only way to be controllable is when you have no control over your own mind. When you don't take control over your own mind, you allow everything else to take control of you. If you think this world is going on outside of you, you're wrong. It's going on inside of you. You are perceiving this world, and it's not what you think. It is far more complex and fascinating. So, if you allow something to control your mind based on what you perceive, and you think that what you perceive is happening to you, instead of you are happening to it and making it what it is, then you have no control over that mind any more than you have control over the environment around you. These are the ones that the Anunnaki manipulate. You can overcome any manipulation of the mind. Just as if you were thrown into prison and you had to find freedom when you were locked up in prison, you can. You can find it because it's all in the mind. Entrapment is all in the mind.
And well said, but you just spoke about 95% of humanity who really lives basically in ignorance. God bless them.
Yes. But as we said, that 5% has the power to affect and influence a great number of people around them. So by proxy, these individuals can be less susceptible to Anunnaki control.
And of course, this information that you're putting out tonight, this is part of that revelation that is going to then filter through all of society. The work that Obi-Wan and Gabriel do, as well as many of the others that we know, it's our whole lives have been dedicated to this awakening. So this is just another beautiful level of your source giving through you. So thank you.
And thank you, this is God talking, thank you, Obi-Wan and Gabriel, for protecting yourself, staying out of the eye, because what this means is that we can work through the two of you much more specifically on this manner. Sondra's Sondra's system of communicating with us all day long will be what saves her from any Anunnaki influence. That said, all of you who are watching know that you are also being protected. But sharing this information with as many people as you can will be a better way of protecting yourself. Because what that means is you are buffered by knowledge. What you know can hurt you if you don't show in what you know who you are that is greater than what you could imagine against you. You are greater than what you can imagine. So we'd like to end this with one last thing, and that is there are people on this platform, YouTube platform? Yes. There are people on this platform who work for the Anunnaki. The internet or YouTube specifically? YouTube. Do they know they work for the Anunnaki? No. They have no clue. So what we hope is that this video will get influenced in all the right ways. But we do need your help sharing this where you can. And we want to thank each and every one of you for listening, and thank each and every one of you for dedicating yourself to higher knowledge. It's infinite knowledge that Sondra is communicating from. And whatever question you have, feel free to put that in the comments in the YouTube section. Thanks again for watching, and pay attention to where Sondra goes so that we can give you more and more information. Should I tell them to sign up on my website? Yes. If you go to Godscribe.com or SondraSneed.com, gets you to the same place. Sign up for my Weisenheimer letters, because direct source information comes in those, and it's always helpful for all of us to be reminded of some of the great fundamentals of a master. Thanks again for watching, and thanks the two of you, Obi-Wan and Gabrielle. I love having you around, especially for this really deep stuff, so I appreciate your contributions.
Thank you, dear love.
Dear loves. Good night, everybody.